Welcome to part 2 on depression. But what is depression, really? If you ask a psychiatrist, they'll tell you about a chemical imbalance in the brain. If you ask a therapist, they'll talk about childhood traumas or distorted thinking. A sociologist will blame modern isolation, and a spiritual teacher will say it's a disconnection from the self. Who's right? According to philosopher Ken Wilber, they're all right, but only partially. In our society, we tend to treat depression as a purely biochemical problem or a simple malfunction of our emotions. But what if I told you that depression is a call from your consciousness to evolve? Today we'll explore how to understand depression from the perspective of Ken Wilber's integral psychology. Far from seeing it as a simple illness, Wilber teaches us that it's an evolutionary crisis. Wilber is the creator of integral theory. His premise is simple: reality is too complex to be viewed from a single perspective. To truly understand depression, we cannot use reductionist explanations. We need an integral map. Today we will analyze depression through its 4 quadrants. Understanding this can completely change how you view your own pain. To understand the deep pain of depression, Wilber uses his famous Awaken model, which tells us that any human problem must be analyzed from 4 simultaneous dimensions: the individual interior, your thoughts, your subjective perception, and your emotions. Here we look at ourselves. What do you feel? What do you tell yourself? Now, depression is not a chemical malfunction, it is a state of consciousness. Here we find destructive self-talk and fear self-criticism, repressed emotions, especially unexpressed anger, unprocessed traumas from the past. Ken Wilber adds something crucial here: levels of development. Depending on your psychological maturity, depression feels different. A person in an egocentric stage may become depressed from not getting what they want, that is, their desires don't align with reality, leading to frustration, anger, and hatred. A person in a rational stage may become depressed from a lack of purpose, a great existential void. I have a life, but I don't know what to do with it. And someone in an advanced evolutionary stage may experience the dark night of the soul, a spiritual depression where the ego dissolves to give way to a higher consciousness. To realize that one has acted wrongly. A major heartbreak, an accident or serious illness, or the death of a loved one are all stages of crisis, the dark night of the soul, which calls for integration and spiritual and conscious purification. The individual exterior, your biology, your genetics, and your neurotransmitters. It represents what can be seen and measured externally in an individual. Here we find lack of serotonin and dopamine, low-grade inflammation in the body, malfunction of the HPA axis, the stress response system, lack of sleep and poor diet. Viewing depression only from this perspective leads you to believe that the only solution is a pill. Medications are useful and save lives, but Wilber warns us, alleviating the biological symptom does not cure the psychological or existential cause. The body is only one corner of the map. The collective interior, your relationships, your culture, and your shared values. None of us is an island. It is the transpersonal world. How does culture influence depression? We live in a culture that is fundamentally selfish, violent, and ignorant, with deep hedonistic tendencies. In this way, individuals obey multiple unconscious mandates of imperfection that wreak social, economic, and emotional havoc on people with different levels of consciousness and values. The epidemic of profound loneliness and lack of community generates existential suffering. If your cultural environment constantly tells you that you are not enough, your mind, unless your ego is healthy and mature, believes it, and your brain shuts down the chemicals of well-being. Depression is often not your problem. It is the symptom of a sick culture that sickens with profoundly selfish behaviors, lacking self-criticism, and rationally justifying a lack of ethical relationships. This ends up being internalized, causing depression. The collective exterior, your social environment, your lifestyle and institutional systems, the economy, urban planning, and technology. Depression is also shaped by the design of our society, alienating jobs with long working hours, precarious wages, and suffering from abuses of power. Lack of access to green spaces, natural light, and leisure time. Economic instability, inequalities, and injustices. You cannot fully heal your mind if the socio-economic system in which you live is structurally draining your energy every day. Why is Ken Wilber's analysis so liberating? Because it takes away some of the blame and gives us a real action plan. Depression is a multidimensional crisis. If you are going through this process, the solution is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Healing requires a holistic approach. Biologically, take care of your body, your sleep, your nutrition, and seek medical support if necessary. Psychologically, go to therapy, observe your thoughts, and embrace your shadow self. Get better. On a cultural level, surround yourself with people who validate you and disconnect from toxic expectations. Seek out inspiring role models. Embody constructive values. On a systemic level, change your work environment and your routines if the system makes you unwell. No truth is false, but no truth is complete on its own. To heal the mind, we need to integrate the entire map. Wilber describes the psyche as a spectrum ranging from the most basic impulses to spiritual dimensions. Depression often occurs when we have become stuck at a certain level of development. Your ego may have become attached to an old identity that no longer serves you, and suffering appears to force you to let go of the old. It is a call to integrate and transcend. Depression arises when a part of you resists moving toward a new way of understanding the world. But here comes a crucial warning. In his analysis, Wilber warns against the pre-trans fallacy. This means that we sometimes confuse psychological regression, that is, a state of chaos or trauma prior to the development of a mature ego, with a mystical and transcendental opening. Healing our depression requires first building a strong, healthy, and mature ego before attempting to transcend it. We cannot skip the rungs on the ladder of human development. To truly heal, it's not enough to simply suppress the symptoms. We need a holistic approach. This means caring for your body, examining your inner beliefs, strengthening your social connections, and ultimately, finding a deeper meaning in your life. As philosopher and psychologist William James said, the best use of life is to invest it in something that will outlive it. If you're going through a dark time, remember that depression can be the catalyst that propels you to integrate all aspects of your being. If this perspective has been helpful, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a roadmap to find their way out of the darkness. See you in the next video.